Welcome back, everybody. So today we are going to look at my brew day for Bell's HopSlam clone. This was a, kit that I did buy from the Bell's General Store. If you didn't see our, unboxing, you can go watch that. Also, check out 31stbrewing.com for the full grain bill, hop bill, all that. So, as you guys can see right here, I am milling the grains. I did go ahead and use a drill on this one. For the grains, it's 10 pounds of 2-row, 5 pounds of pale malt, 0.5 pounds caramel 40L. Pretty big grain bill, I guess, for what I've been doing, and I didn't want to take the time to go ahead and hand crank it. I was running a little late, so that's why I used the drill. Usually 10 pounds, 12 pounds, somewhere in there is what I normally use, but on this HopSlam, if you've ever had it, it is a higher ABV, so you are going to need some more grains, where in a typical, how you want to make it depends on, again, how you want to make it, but in this beer, a lot of your ABV is coming from all the honey and sugar that you're adding to the boil. This grain bill, I think, is just giving it a little bit of backbone to kind of balance out that maltiness and sweetness of this beer, where if you used all grains to get this high of an ABV, I think the malt would really come out in this beer more than it does, or like it does, I should say, in like a West Coast IPA or a double IPA. So this brew day is a little bit different. I did follow exactly what Bell's gave you for the instructions. So here, obviously, we're going to do our mash in. I do underlet. This time I did not touch the grains. I let it fill up with water all the way. It did reduce dough balls. I think I had maybe 1 or 2 in there, where before, as somebody pointed out in one of my other videos, why underlet if you're going to sit there and stir it. So if you are going to underlet, let all that water get in there before you start touching it. Now on this one, this does call for 4.5 gallons of water for the mash in. It is a thicker mash to me. And what we want to do is the mash in for this is 150 degrees for 45 minutes. Now this is what I was saying, it does differ a little bit for my standard, but before we get into that, you'll see right now that the mash is pretty thick. I think you guys can tell from this angle, and I don't know if it was my temperature probe or what it was, but it was reading 161, and I put 10-12 ice cubes in there to bring it down to the 150, and it was reading like 145. So I'm not quite sure what happened, so I did have to heat up water, and as you can see here, it's a lot, it's more, there's more water in there. I did get it down. It is a pain to heat up more water, because you are adding to the grist or your mash in for that, which you kind of don't want to do, but hey, it's home brewing. You do what you got to do. So again, like I said, we're going to let this sit for 45 minutes, and then what Bell's wants you to do is to up the temperature to 170 over like a 10-minute period. So it's not your typical mash in, for me at least, where I let it sit an hour, I drain everything off, then I go to my mash out. So I did do that 45 minutes, came back, heated up water. Now Bell's on their instructions says boiling water. Dump 2 gallons of boiling water in there. Well, that's what I did, and my mash only came up to about 160, so it was 10 degrees off. I wasn't going to add more water, so that's what we went with on this one. Then once you get the extra water in there, you let that sit for another 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes, and then after that's done, that's when you're going to do your first Vorloff on this. And as you can see, I tried to just add some boiling water. I did have my pot still on. I put extra water. It said 2 gallons. I think I did 3 just in case. But over the 10-15 minutes to ramp up that temperature to 170, I've never done it before, so I was just using a pot and dumping some water in there, mixing it up. The temperature was going up a tiny bit, not that much, and that's what I did until I got down to 2 gallons in my boil kettle, and then I just went ahead and dumped the rest of it in there so that way it could get it up there, because like I said, the temperature was coming up some, but not as much as I would have liked. And I knew there's no way it was going to get to 170 with 2-3 gallons of water. It was 44 degrees out. I don't think that really had anything to do with not hitting the 170. I just don't think if you're mashing in at 150, throwing 2 gallons of boiling water on there is going to get it up to 170. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but at least from the stuff I've been doing, there's no way boiling water is going to up your mash in water to 170. So the camera does go foggy. Obviously, it's from all the steam, and I couldn't do anything about it. So yeah, once you get that extra 2 gallons in there, you're gonna let it sit for 10 minutes. So that is the 75, I'm pretty sure, 70, sorry. So after you get to the 170, 160 like I did, stir it up some, and then you're gonna let it sit for the 10 minutes. Now after the 10 minutes, obviously you're going to go ahead and do your first Vorloff, and I couldn't find my big pitcher that I normally use, so I had to use this small measuring cup. I think it's 3 cups or whatever, but one thing I wanted to point out, if you guys have been watching some of my Brew Day videos, in some of the other ones, I talked about how the drill, I thought using a drill was crushing them finer, and I would almost get stuck sparges. Well, on this one I didn't. Now, obviously, there's no wheat or anything like that in there, so I shouldn't get a stuck sparge, but I'm pretty sure on some of my older brew days I didn't have any wheat, and I was still kind of getting a stuck sparge. Really, this one was almost like an orange juice color. I would almost say like a New England IPA. Almost like a New England IPA coming out the first couple runnings. But it did clear up. It probably took me 5-6 of these to really get it running clear. I hope in the future to come up with some way where, I mean, obviously I'm going to have to go to electric or something, but I do like the idea of while it's in the mash tun, it's circulating to clear that liquid so you don't have to spend so much time doing a Vorloff. So on this one, after with all that water, the 4.5 gallons, then the 2 gallons, maybe, you know, another half gallon of ice cubes and warm water and all that to get it up to temp. My first runnings into the boil kettle, as you'll see here in a little bit, was 5 gallons. Now, most of the time I get 3.5 gallons, but like I said, this is the first time where I started with 4.5 gallons, then had to add 2 gallons to ramp up the temperature, and then floor off. Most of the time, like I said, it's about 5 gallons in the mash tun. Then I collect about 3.5, because obviously your grains are going to soak up some of that water, so what you put into the mash tun is not what you're going to get out. So here we are putting our first runnings into the pot, and from looking at my notes I have here, if I can find it, our first runnings came out to be 16 bricks, which again, I did not put this in Beersmith. I just went ahead and went with what Bell's provided me. And obviously, I think most people, they do not provide you, okay, well, your first running should be this, or your second running should be this. That's just one thing that I write down just to see if I make it again, if I'm hitting pretty much the same bricks or gravity readings as I did the last time. So at the end of the mash, I wanted to say I did keep the 150, so that was fine. The mash tuns that I have, they pretty much always hold their mash, or their mash temp, I should say. So here's just a little bit of the second Vorloff coming out of there. You can see it almost looks like a New England IPA, all those chunks in there trying to set the grain bed. And here's like a little before of the mash out. Obviously I do have a hot liquor tank, but I don't have a stand, so what I do is when I need my water, I just pick the thing up and dump it in there. I'm not gonna build a stand or anything like that right now, so this is just how it's gonna be. I could use my pump, but again, just dump it in there. Gets it done faster, don't have to worry about anything else. You can see the bubbles coming up from the water trying to get down into that grain bed, because it is kind of compacted because of the first runnings. So again, just like any typical brew day for your mash out, I stir everything up, get those grains incorporated into the water. We want to try and pull as much of the leftover sugar out of there as we possibly can. Then what we'll do is put the lid on it and let it sit for another 15 minutes. Now I do believe with the instructions in Bell's, they do not tell you anything really about the second Vorloff. They just mention, put more water in there, collect your 6.5 gallons of water, and then go ahead and start your boil. Okay, so this is something interesting what Bell's wants you to do. Obviously, it is a good thing. It's just I really don't use honey or anything like that in my beers that I've made. So what they want you to do is pull some of your wort before or during or before the boil, and that way you can dissolve the honey and the sugar into that wort, so that way you're not just throwing it in the kettle and it falling to the bottom and scorching it. Sorry for my arm on this, I should have stood on the other side. But so yeah, what you want to do for this one, because at the 20-minute mark they do want you to add 12 ounces of honey and a packet of the sugar that they do. So draw off some liquid, make sure it's a big enough pitcher where you have some headroom, because you'll see, I'm pretty sure at the end of this, that measuring cup is full. I didn't have really room for anything else, so I did have to draw off some more liquid to dissolve the other thing of priming sugar, which they want you to use if you bottled, but since I keg, I just threw it in there. One thing, I guess, from learning from this brew day, don't do it at the beginning. You can just to have it done, but I did find out, because that liquid did cool off at the 20-minute mark when I did dump it in the kettle. I have to say, it did stop the boil, and I had to get a boil going again. So we're going to get into the hop bill, and again, you can find this on 31stbrewing.com. I do have the full recipe and everything up there. So at 45 minutes, you're going to do 1/2 ounce of crystal hops. Then 20 minutes is 1/2 ounce of mosaic and 1/2 ounce of glacier. With 15 minutes left, 1 ounce of centennial. Then 5 minutes left, 1/2 ounce of mosaic, 1/2 ounce of glacier. Then at flame out, which I'm not sure why I didn't take a picture, or I'll move them over, 2 ounces of Amarillo and 1/2 ounce of crystal hops. So then that's pretty much done. This is a 75-minute boil, so your first 35 minutes are not introducing any hops into this beer. Like I said, your first hop addition is at the 45-minute mark, so it is kind of different. I don't think I've done a beer where I haven't put some hops right in when it starts boiling. So then we're going to finish the boil. This one, I did use firm cap pre-boil. I did collect almost 9 gallons of liquid, and like I said before, Bell says 6.5. My boil off is big, so that's why I went to 9.5 or 9 gallons about. I know from brewing over the 2 years with this kettle that we're going to have a lot of boil off. So if you are using something like this, you might have to adjust your grain bill, because you are going to boil off a lot more. So here I'm just kind of showing how I do, or how I add my hops to the liquid. Then this is after the boil, and this is how my setup is to get it into the fermenter. This is the new Anvil 7.5 gallon brew bucket that I use, and I use WLP001 as a yeast. It recommends US05 or the 001. Thank you to my son for holding the camera so I could show this. I'm still using fast pitch. I think it works well still. I know some people don't like it, but hey, it works for me. I did start this the night before. 1 can of the fast pitch, fill it up with water, dump that in there, and you're good to go. So on this one has 4 ounces of Simcoe dry hopped 5 days after you start fermentation, and that's where I'm at now. With it is I'm going to add the 5 ounces. I'll have to go back and look to see if it actually says how long the dry hops stay in. I don't remember reading that, but good brew day. So my original gravity did end up being 1085, and Bell's was looking for 1086. So even with my setup and all that, 1 point under, cool. I'm not going to complain about that at all. I did not calculate my pre-boil, but I don't think I did. Let me check. Okay, so my pre-boil was 1052, and they wanted 1058. Now I'm gonna say it's because I also had almost 9 gallons of water and they wanted 6.5. I think the extra packet of sugar did help some, so we'll have to wait and see what the final gravity comes out to be. From the bell sheets, they are showing that your final gravity should be 1010. I don't know if we'll hit that, but it is bubbling away. So that's the brew day. Leave any questions that you guys have. Also check out 31stbrewing.com. Like I said, I do have the full grain bill, the hop schedule, and all that there. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, happy brewing. Thank you for watching this video. Thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. Leave me a comment down below to tell me what you thought about this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe and share, and hit that bell so you know when new videos are coming out. You can check out these videos over here. Also head over to 31stbrewing.com for everything beer and home brewing related.